Well, looking at the maps today, it's very interesting to see how the snow is still sticking around, at least the forecast for it. And we're already seeing multiple winter storm warnings, winter weather advisories, winter storm watches that have really pushed out as we expand the confidence for some heavy snow over the next couple of days. Let's start where the warnings are right now, and then we'll work our way to the west. It's a mouthful. We've got winter storm warnings here now issued for a good chunk of central and western Virginia, into parts of West Virginia here along the Virginia border, and then winter storm watches further to the north. That includes places like Charleston, Huntington, up towards Beckley. North of that, you've got winter storm watches, and then those expand further to the north from Clarksburg to Parkersburg, not quite up to Morgantown, but you can see over into the eastern panhandle here into West Virginia for some snow, and it could be heavy at times. Some of these areas could see 4 to 8 inches, places like Canaan Valley, south down to Snowshoe. Quite a bit of snow here. Further south, though, the deal across especially southern parts of Virginia along the North Carolina line will be a mix of snow, sleet, freezing rain, kind of an ice mixture, especially anywhere along the southern side of this precipitation shield. And then the further north you go, it looks like more snow. Eventually, though, I think a lot of us end up seeing some mixed precipitation. Winter storm watches now in effect for western Maryland, all the way over to D.C., Dover, all of Delaware right now under winter storm watches, and then that expands all the way down to the eastern shore of Virginia, at least part of it, and then up into New Jersey. Does not include Philadelphia. Winter storm watches out now for Atlantic City down to Cape May. Does not include Trenton. Further north, lighter winter impacts expected, at least at this point. Now, further to the west, those winter storm watches do include a lot of northern Kentucky and the southern parts of Indiana. It does include Louisville, all along the I-64 corridor from Lexington, Louisville. North up to Cincinnati, we've got winter weather advisories. And south of that, heavy rain is going to be a problem here, not just with this storm, but another one late in the week. So multiple rounds of heavy rain, I think, could aggravate some flooding big time across parts of Kentucky, Tennessee, and arguably parts of western Virginia, southwest Virginia, maybe even North Carolina, and then into the south, into Georgia, possibly Alabama, and then into South Carolina too. Something to keep an eye on this week. Further to the west of the highest impact, in my opinion, right now, the winter storm watches that have expanded east now to include Kansas City. Just because we don't have the winter storm watches out up here toward Chicago, Grand Rapids, Lansing, into Michigan, it doesn't mean we're not under the threat of snow. It's that the confidence just hasn't grown here. There's still some time to go. The National Weather Service usually takes some time issuing those. I mean, we're still a little bit out from it time-wise. So I expect to see these expand to the east as we move through the next cycle, which would be this afternoon, maybe even late this morning. You might start to see some confidence grow, and you may see these watches get expanded. But here's what we're looking at right now. Winter storm watches for Kansas City up to Quincy, Illinois, and then further back to the west. It does include Topeka, and then all the way west to Hayes, and then into parts of eastern Colorado. Winter storm watches out now. That's an overview of what's going on right now as far as the watches go. Let's talk about where all this is going. We're going to break down some of the snow totals. It took a little while getting the live stream going this morning because I wanted to really get in on some of those forecast maps and some of those snow totals and some of those micro things, I guess, so to speak. All right. Here's a quick overview of the European model. Now, I don't know. Maybe it's a little bit overdone at this point, but it's interesting to see those high snow totals still showing up along the northern side of the axis of wherever our area of low pressure goes. Let's take a quick look at the surface map. We'll start here today. This is where we are on Monday. Hope you're having a great day. High pressure building into the east. We've got some dry weather building in here. So not looking too bad across the mid-Atlantic, back into the Midwest, some showers across the south, and some light snow starting to break out already across parts of North Dakota into Wisconsin and Iowa. This is associated with a weak disturbance moving through that will eventually drop into the south here, at least to the south, I should say, and that's going to get some snow going across parts of Kentucky, also Virginia. That's our Arctic front as really cold conditions develop here across parts of North and South Dakota, where the wind chills have been extremely cold. Cold, I should say, with temperatures, at least the air temperatures have been cold, but the wind chill may not be as cold, but it feels like, that's what I'm really trying to say. The feels like temperature has been close to 55 below zero. So that wind chill, no joke, across the Dakotas this morning and through today. Although as high pressure builds in, the winds will back off here. Now the snow starts to develop. Let's talk about the snow that's going to be developing across Kentucky and Virginia first, and then eventually it will start to pick up here. So really two distinct areas I think we have to watch. The first one will start to pick up as we head into Tuesday afternoon. It's still going to continue to get a little bit heavier across parts of Virginia, West Virginia, especially into northern Virginia. Along the southern side of that, some mixed precipitation possible. And then our second wave of snow starts to take shape across the Central Plains now as we head into early Wednesday morning. So the snow picks up from western Kansas, eastern Colorado, southern parts of Nebraska. Although lighter snow will start to fall across Iowa, the snow will get heavier as we move through the morning hours across parts of northern Missouri, especially eastern Kansas, southeastern parts of Nebraska, and I think southern parts of Iowa. I think that's where the heaviest snow will fall. On the southern side of that, maybe some mixed precipitation down into Oklahoma, into central and southern Missouri. And, when you look at Kansas City, I think it's all snow here. Really cold, a fluffy snow at that, some really high snow ratios, so it's going to blow around. Winds could gust up to 20 to 30, so while that doesn't sound like a lot, with a very fluffy snow, it could really blow around and reduce visibilities pretty quickly. As we move through the day, we continue to move through Wednesday afternoon. St. Louis, you can see kind of a mix here. The heaviest axis of snow will be to your north this time, a little bit further to the north and west as well. So Chicago, that does include you. I think you are in the sweet spot for some snow this time. A lot of people in Chicago chiming in. I'll believe it when I see it. We're now less than 2 days out, and the confidence in my mind is really starting to grow. Would not shock me if we start to see these winter storm watches get expanded pretty quickly here, as this is looking pretty good, at least for some snow here, or bad, however you look at it. Something of note that I think is interesting, watch how long the persistent wintry precipitation will continue across Pennsylvania, parts of Maryland, and even northern Virginia and West Virginia, because you got the round one that's moving through. Now, this area of low pressure, which is moving to the east, continues to keep the wintry mix here going. Some ice, sleet, freezing rain, and then the heaviest snow will be back here. Some big-time rain across the south. There could even be some severe weather here. That would be something to watch as we head through the week. I'll be defining that a little bit closer as we get closer in time, I should say. And then low pressure moves right toward the Great Lakes. In the warm sector of this area, again, I say warm sector relative to where the cold is, the real cold is, there could be some sleet, some freezing rain, and some snow. So New York City, it looks like we start maybe as some snow and then go over to sleet and then eventually just over to rain. Further inland, though, we could hang on to some mixed precipitation. Some sleet, some freezing rain, some ice, kind of a mess, and then rain pushes into the south, and then cold high pressure builds in. We're not done. This is only round one, I think, because now we're looking further ahead in time to what happens heading into the weekend. Unfortunately, if you're hoping for snow across the south, I don't have any good news for you guys down here. It's just going to be too warm. No snow here. The snow continues, though. Look at this. Almost the same areas have another chance for some heavy snow as we move into Saturday and Sunday. Now, will this happen? I don't know. My confidence is quite a bit lower on this one, but the fact that we're looking at back-to-back storms, again, for Michigan, Chicago, back into Missouri, Iowa, maybe even Kansas again, very impressive to see that. And then northern Ohio could see a little bit of snow on the back end of this, but again, your big snow axis in all of these are to your northwest. If you're in Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, other than the northern parts of these states, especially Illinois and Indiana. But once you get over into Ohio, it's mostly north of you, up into Michigan and then into Canada, into Ontario. This low moves to the northeast as we head into next weekend. So now we're into next Sunday, some really cold air pushing in behind this. This is windy conditions, snow showers pushing all the way down to Tennessee, maybe even as far south as Alabama. Really cold air, this time pushing well into the south. So a big cool down, I think, on the way, even for the south heading into next week. As this Arctic high builds in, it'll be modified. Won't be as cold as you're seeing to the north, but some cold air, I think, pushing all the way into Florida. Now, for the details of the snow. That's maybe why you're here today. This is a look at the ensemble guidance. This is the possibility of seeing more than 3 inches of snow. This is really high. You've got 90+% chance of seeing that anywhere in this red, of seeing more than 3 inches of snow when you look at all 51 members of model guidance. That's pretty high. Also pretty high here too, from Kentucky into Virginia, West Virginia, toward D.C., into the mid-Atlantic. You get the idea here. When you flip this over to the idea of more than 6 inches, a little bit lower back here. So most of the warnings that you're seeing in the winter storm watches are generally for roughly 3 to 8 inches of snow. It varies depending on where you are. We're going to break that down right now. Here's where the snow comes into the mid-Atlantic, into the Appalachians, especially the southern Appalachians. We're going to see some ice along that Virginia, North Carolina line. And then as we move forward in time, that moves away and our attention turns to the snow back to the north and west. Let's look at the snow totals. We'll start off here in the east and we'll work our way west. From New Jersey, southern Pennsylvania, down to D.C., looks like 2 to 4 inches to me. And I think that includes Philadelphia. Up to New York, maybe a trace to an inch. Out toward Long Island, you can see very light snow amounts here. Down toward Atlantic City, the official forecast here is close to 5 inches, between 4 and 5 inches. So you're talking about averaging somewhere in between that. So 3 to 5 inches of snow. That sounds pretty good to me. And then you see these isolated pockets of 6 plus. These are touched numbers, the official forecast numbers from the National Weather Service at the National Digital Forecast Database. That's a mouthful. I almost went to the Storm Prediction Center on that. Wrong agency. But you get the idea. You can see that snow, and especially into the mountains of West Virginia, I think we see 4 to 8 inches of snow. Let's flip this over, and I don't want to miss out, too, the snow that's going on further to the south toward Richmond, a couple of inches here, but further north, especially once you head north on 95 up towards Fredericksburg, you get up towards D.C., now you're talking about 4 to 6, maybe even 7, 8 inches of snow. But if you look at the European data, still kind of heavy here. I think it may be just a touch heavier, but the idea is I think there could be some locally higher amounts in some of these areas where we overperform. Further to the west, this is the snow that we're expecting just through Wednesday. So you get the idea of that snow here across southern Ohio, northern parts of Kentucky into West Virginia. And again, there could be some mixed precipitation here. And now we bring the snow in to your north and west heading into Thursday. At least those will be the totals through Thursday morning. Let's move west. Here's where the snow really starts to pick up as we head into Tuesday. You can see that snow across Kentucky moving east pretty quickly. We'll be done with that fairly fast, and now we're looking to this area to develop some heavy snow across Kansas, Nebraska, Missouri, Iowa, and then that moves northeast toward the Great Lakes into Chicago. Let's look at these snow totals starting in the northeast first here of this region into Michigan. Again, these are official forecast numbers, looking at close to, I would say, 6 plus inches in some areas across parts of Michigan. It looks like a solid coating of snow here. Now back toward Chicago, look at this. The official forecast for downtown, 7.9. All right, so you can see how you're looking at a good 6 to 8 inches of snow. If I had to guess, I would probably forecast this out and say something like, I don't know if I want to go 4 to 9 or if I want to go 5 to 10 here, but you get the idea, because I think there could be some heavier bands of snow on the northwest side of wherever this develops. Pushing further to the south and west, the heavier snow back toward Quincy, you can see close to 7 inches here. That's the official forecast numbers. So a good swath of 6 plus in the official forecast from the National Weather Service, pushing all the way back to the west into Missouri. Now, down toward St. Louis, those numbers fall off pretty quickly. And that's because in this region, we're likely going to see a mix over to some ice, some sleet, some freezing rain. Further to the north of that, those numbers fall off too as you head up into Wisconsin. But there could be some snow, some decent snow here. I mean, look at this. Into southeast Wisconsin, some areas still seeing close to 6 plus inches of snow, and those numbers really trail off as you head north of that, less than 2 inches. Let's move further to the west. Now we're in Iowa. It's kind of tough to see, I know, with all the snow on it. Back it up. Now you can see Iowa, and then we cover it with snow as we head into Wednesday, at least with a couple of inches. Further to the south, especially once you get close to the border here of Illinois and Missouri, you're talking about close to 6 inches of snow. That's where the heaviest snow would be across Iowa. And then speaking of Missouri, a little bit further to the south, now we're looking toward Kansas City, back into Kansas. Along I-70, you're talking about somewhere between 6 to 10 inches of snow, I think. Some of these numbers back into Kansas, the official warning watches that I've seen are 4 to 8 inches, but they're forecasting 8.9 out here into Kansas. So Manhattan, Topeka, we could see 8 plus inches of snow, maybe a little bit more. And then those numbers trail off as you head back to the west, over towards Colorado, into West Kansas. Once you get toward the Colorado line, those numbers drop down significantly, and now we're talking about just a couple of inches in toward Denver, and then up in the mountains, some heavier snow here into Colorado, and then into Nebraska. We didn't move quite that far north into Kansas, but once you get toward the Nebraska-Kansas border, close to 6 inches, and they trail off fairly quickly, especially northwest of that, and then once you get into South Dakota, very little, if any, snow here. This is an impressive look. I don't know. I mean, this is the European from overnight. There you go. I don't know. I see this and go, what's going on? This is the Kuchera, which takes in the idea of how fluffy your snow could be. But when you look at it at a 10-to-1 ratio, there's not going to be a lot of moisture content with this. I think that ratio is just, it's going crazy with the snow. So when you flip that over to that, the Kuchera, which again, it's still the European, but it just measures the snow differently, I guess. It takes into account things like that snow ratio, how cold it is. It's going to be a very cold, fluffy snow with temperatures in the teens and 20s, so it's easy to see how it would fluff it up. But if you were to take the liquid equivalent, and which is a 10-to-1 ratio, which is a good average, which a lot of forecasters use, especially if you're looking at an average snow, you would get 10 inches of snow per 1 inch of rain. But you may be looking at more like a 15-to-1 or a 20-to-1. So it's easy to see how when you look at a model that takes that into account, it almost doubles these numbers, right? And that's because it's fluffing the snow up. So the liquid equivalent forecast in my mind isn't super, super heavy, which means it would be an easy to shovel snow, but it could still have an impact. So it's easy to see how you could fluff this up and get more than your 10-to-1 ratio. So quite a few things go into forecasting these things. And if you get into the National Weather Service forecast discussions, you'll see them talking about this quite often. All right, let's move to the west. Let's talk about this storm that's moving in here, because this is our second storm that could impact a lot of you that are seeing snow right now. This moves into California with some heavy rain, some big snow as we head into Thursday, especially into the mountains. We could be measuring it in feet, multiple feet of snow. And then that moves into the southwest. Also some snow into Idaho, parts of Montana, Utah, Colorado. And then our trough kicks off to the east as we head into the weekend. And that right here, guys, this could bring us another round of snow toward Friday and Saturday. As it moves out of the Rockies, it moves east. We've talked about some of this up into the same areas. More wintry chances of snow. Pretty wild to see that over the next couple of days. And I'm not so sure that we're done. This may just be, I don't want to say round one, but more snow on the way, I do believe. Another thing, and before I leave you today, I want to leave you with one more item I think that needs discussed, and that's the severe weather possibility over the next couple of days. If you look at where we are right now, day one, not a lot going on, but by day two, which would be Tuesday, and then especially into Wednesday across the Gulf Coast, the chances of some severe weather here. And beyond this, it kind of looks all over the place. But again, with that next system by the weekend, I think you got to watch this. Just saying, across the south, it looks like a really amplified system. If you're starting to see this outlook go up, if you are across the south, day 7, day 8, really not the time to look. So now we're looking at Saturday into Sunday. We could be looking at some strong thunderstorms. I don't want to go out and start saying we're going to have a ton of tornadoes here, but you've kind of got the look when you start to see this effect here. And let's go back to the models. If you're wondering if this is live, it clearly is live if you're watching the playback. So as we head into the weekend right here, a lot of warm, unstable air here on this side of our storm. And now, do you get some kind of front developing here? This is the GFS. It's not nearly as aggressive looking as the European, but still a decent axis in the upper level, some decent support showing up. So I think it's a time to watch. All right, that's all I got for now, guys. Thanks for watching. If you're brand new, welcome. I'm Travis. I hope you will join the other thousands of folks who've subscribed. All of you who have done so, thank you so much for supporting what I'm doing here on YouTube. I appreciate it very much. Just a quick background about me. If you're brand new to the channel, who the heck are you? I used to be a chief meteorologist many, many years ago, but I've been out of that business. Tracking stuff like this is a hobby of mine. It was before I even worked in television. And after I got out of TV, you don't just stop looking at this stuff, at least if you're a weather geek like me. So if you like this kind of stuff, I hope you'll consider coming back and subscribing. Kind of a long video today. They're normally not this long. So thanks for watching. See you next time.